Welcome back to the Crosstown Nine. I'm Jhon, and Chris is not here today as he's just getting signed by the Orlando Magic. Only partially kidding. Chris is in Orlando. He was going to be playing in the Kia Center in a game set up by the Sixth Man Show podcast. So shout out to Jonathan and the Sixth Man Show for the amazing opportunity for Chris. Be sure to follow us on all socials at Crosstown Nine. Across all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, not Facebook, but subscribe to your favorite podcast channels. We're on just about everything nowadays, Apple Music, Spotify, and check out a listen. We did most recent drop was opening day. So now we're going to kind of catch up on all things Yankees mostly. They just swept San Francisco all three games, opening off, and then currently taking on the Seattle Mariners, which should be a fun one. The first game was really fun with the Yankees losing 2-1 on a walk-off single by Cal Raleigh, but we'll get into all that. Also, make sure you check out the latest episode of Mad Props with Ava Bunn from the new Scrubs. It's out now, and then later this week, Chris and Matt will discuss Super Mario Galaxy, so stay locked in for that. Chris is doing a lot of good stuff all over the place. I don't know how he finds time to play basketball, but he is. Anyway, let's dive into the Yankees. They had a really great start to the season against San Francisco Giants. What a lot of the chatter is does it say more about how good the Yankees are going to be, or does it say about how potentially bad the Giants are going to be? They do have a new manager straight from college, but they do have a good roster. Adames, Devers, good pitching staff with Webb. So I don't think it's much of that. I think the Yankees came out firing. They're healthy. Their lineup is deep. But I think one of the things I took away early was the pitching staff, from the starting staff all the way to the bullpen and Bednar closing out games. They're really effective early on. I think as the season progresses, we'll see how the depth of the bullpen is tested after what we saw with the first game of Seattle. But we'll kind of go into the San Francisco series first. Game one, opening day, we covered in our last pod. Feel free to check that out, talking about all things opening day, from how Fried looked, Aaron Judge striking out 4 times, everything to do with Netflix and how they produced that show. But check out that pod. We're talking about opening day. It was a lot of fun. Very excited to start the season. Game two was Cam Schiller dominating. He pitched really well. And then a combination of Cruz, Hill, Doval, Bednar combining for 3.2 innings of no-hit baseball. So got to see a lot of the high leverage arms for the Yankees in game two. And then game three, Will Warren battled. He was helped out a lot by his defense. I think the combination of Caballero at short, Jazz at second, turning all the double plays that they turned during the game. Those two are going to be really fun to watch as long as Caballero keeps performing, especially as Volpe starts to rev up his rehab starts and all that stuff. Judge homered twice. Judge homered in game two and then game three. So although those kind of have been his only hits so far this season, the captain is still doing captain things and hitting bombs and helping the Yankees win games. But then even again in game three, after Warren gave, I think it was like 4 innings, Hedrick, Bird, Hill, Bednar combined for 4.2, 4 hits, 0 runs, 5 Ks. So you see in all 3 games, you see a lot of the interesting arms. I think Chris and I discussed the bullpen in depth, and I think what we're now calling the lost episodes. We're talking about kind of the parts of the Yankees that we were excited about and had concerns about. We were super excited about the starting staff, and I think we got to see that so far through the first 4 games of the season, with how pretty much all the starters have looked really good as they continue to rev up coming out of spring training. And then the bullpen, I was excited about the high leverage arms coming in between Doval and Bednar, and even like Cruz, lefty specialist Hill. I think we kind of knew what they were going to be. We kind of knew what to expect from them as the Yankee season progresses. But kind of the other arms, right? We haven't seen really Yarbrough yet, but Hedrick, Bird was kind of relegated to the minor leagues when he got traded over to the Yankees last year. So I think all the Yankee fans were kind of wondering to see what Bird was going to be, even Hedrick a little bit. What is he going to be this season if he's dependent on? And then, of course, we saw the Yankees lose against the Mariners as they played a really good team. I think it's a very different team than San Francisco. I think along with the Yankees and Toronto, the Mariners are right up there with the best team in the AL because I think they have really good starting pitching, as we saw with them throwing Castillo yesterday, and then how much depth they have with their starting lineup. But then you saw Blackburn for the Yankees as kind of their bullpen depth get tested yesterday. I think they wanted to try to not use Bednar for another day. I think they're being careful with Camilo Doval coming off the WBC and having a limited spring training. So I don't think they wanted him to rev up so quickly to come into a game, throw 2 pitches, sit down in between innings, and then come out for another one. When I think a lot of fans are fans, right? Especially when it comes to the Yankees and all things Boone, and criticizing every move he makes. That's not 100% correct, right? Like, I think Blackburn's on the roster. He's going to have to pitch one way or another. And I think in order to kind of save some arms, and it's not a safe situation, so using Bednar, I don't think really made sense. You're still protecting the ball. Season just started. So it's kind of a tough pill to swallow. But when you look at the box score of that game, talking about Seattle, the Yankees had 5 hits on what is supposed to be a really deep lineup, you'd hope. Struck out 10 times during the entire game. So the bats went cold. But you have to be impressed with what Weathers did, going 4.1. He gave up 1 earned run, but struck out 7, throwing 77 pitches and 4 1/3. So Weathers looked good. And I think Weathers going through spring training was a concern, mostly because his numbers were a little poor, to say the least. He did not have a good spring training. But I try not to criticize spring training stats so much because you never know what a guy's working on. Batters, you don't know if they're just kind of looking at pitches, just getting a read on different things as they get used to playing baseball again. Pitchers, you don't know if they're just experimenting with arm slots, experimenting with different pitches, different grips, different speed. Are they going 100%? Are they more just going 80? Are they just warming up? So you never know what pitchers are doing, especially starting pitchers when they're even going into the regular season. They're still revving up. Like I said, like he's only through 77. Fried, I think, through 85 in opening day. I think Will Warren and Cam Schlitter were both around the 75 to 85 mark. Start one. So you'll see all those numbers kind of go up in their next start and as they continue to warm up. But all the starting pitching has been really good. I think if you look at the Yankees' first 4 games, they've given up two runs. So I think any way you slot it, you're 3-1 in your first 4 games. You've given up 2 runs total. I think you have to be happy with how the season has started. I think some things to be impressed with early on is the pitching. I think the pitching from starting to bullpen I hesitate to say exceed expectations, but they've been impressive from Fried, Schlittler, and Will Warren. Who Fried is obviously your ace, but you can see Cam Schlittler, who's still a young prospect, pitching in his first full season. How is he going to fit into the rotation as the season goes on with Cole and Rodon coming back? Will Warren, who had his rookie year last year, so now coming into year 2 with the season under his belt, experience, pitching in the full season. Like, how is he now going to bounce back with there being tape on how he throws and his tendencies? I think he's very good. I think the Yankees are very good at developing that back of the rotation arm. I think we saw it with Schmidt. I think before King became King, I think he was looked at a lot of a middle of rotation guy. Obviously showed out for the Yankees, then went to San Diego. But they really do a good job of kind of those back of the rotation arms they're good at developing. So I think Will Warren, at the very least, will be a consistent 4 or 5 starter, especially in this rotation with so many like high salaried starters between Fried, Cole, and Rodon. But I think they have so much depth there that I think that he'll be a consistent fixture there. What's going to be very interesting when in regards to rotation is when Heel comes back. I think Boone's been asked about it, about how Heel was going to slot in. I think he'll be the fifth starter once they need the fifth in mid-April. But then once Cole comes back, once Rodon comes back, yeah, I think Will Warren and Heel will kind of be fighting for spots. I think Weathers might be fighting for a spot once everyone's healthy, because I think Heel and Weathers can easily slot into the bullpen, and therefore like giving the bullpen a lot of reinforcements if they're able to kind of transition into good pieces there. Weathers being a high-powered lefty, Heel being a two-pitch high-powered righty, because that's one thing the Yankees have missed over the past three years maybe, are those high-powered arms, high-velocity arms with sick movement on their off-speed pitches, and they both can do that. But that's a conversation for down the road once people are healthy. I think Rodon, they just said that Rodon might have strained his hamstring, so now he might be delayed in returning, especially if we're talking about him starting from scratch in terms of build-up. Will he now kind of, I think he was supposed to be a end of April return. That's probably now going to be a little later. Will they rough Cole up if starters kind of become ineffective? But again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I think the starting pitching has been really good. The bullpen has been great. And we'll see kind of, again, the depth of the bullpen. How does that get tested as we go on, especially facing against a really good Mariners team. And then they come home to play against Miami, so we'll see. And actually, as I'm recording this, the Yankees are at the bottom of the first against Seattle and now have a 2-0 lead. We'll just kind of keep tabs on that as we go. Looks like an RBI double from Ben Rice and another single by Stan to score Rice. So Stan decided to become a contact hitter this season, as I think he was leading the league in singles, or at least now probably still up there. But yeah, Stan decided to become a contact hitter. Speaking of, another thing that's really been impressive this season has been Giancarlo Stanton. I think coming into tonight's game 2 against the Mariners, he had a .500 batting average. He's running a lot better. He's making really great contact with the baseball. Stan is obviously a very streaky hitter, but I think when you talk about Stan and him being a streaky hitter, it's always about the power, right? It's always him like hitting home runs in 3 out of 5 games, or like multiple home runs in a game, but then the next day striking out 3 times. And I think that's what but if Stan is able to kind of turn some of those strikeouts into singles, just hard hit balls, up the middle, shallow left, shallow right, just getting on base and moving runners over. If he's able to be a professional hitter, I think he's always been a power hitter. That's never been a concern with Stan. But if he's able to now add a new trick into his repertoire and be a contact hitter getting singles, that's another very dynamic aspect to this lineup, especially when you're talking about a middle of the order bat. So Stanton has been really good. And again, he's coming into the season, Chris and I talked about it. If he's able to stay healthy, a healthy Stanton, and he's able to play, he's not going to play 162, but let's say, can you sign him up for 130, 140 games at DH, where he's healthy and consistently getting at bats? I think that's super dynamic for this team as they chase a division title and the number 1 seed in the American League. And the player that I think is kind of being overshadowed by how good Stan has been, but as well as the pitching, is Cody Bellinger. I think he's now second on the team in average. He's been playing really well defensively, and I think a skill of his that goes I don't want to say unnoticed, but I think something not necessarily commented on because it's just second nature to him is all the positions that he can play. Like he can, when they play Grichuk in left, he can go out to center no problem. Obviously, when Grisham's out in center, he can go to left. We know what he can do at first base. We'll see if that at all becomes a factor in this season. But the fact that he can move around in the outfield as the Yankees try to do different things with the lineup, with the depth that they have, it makes him very dynamic, and he's so consistent defensively that if he can also be consistent with his bat, he's such a key player for this team. And I think that's why they signed him to the big contract. I think that's why Judge wanted him to be back, is because he could be a consistent fixture in the outfield along with Judge. And it's one less thing for them to worry about. So Bellinger's gotten off to a really good start. Hopefully it continues. I think it will. I think he is past any sort of his injury problems that he may have had at the end of his LA run and then end of Chicago with the Cubs. So I think he's past all that. I think he's just ready to kind of be a consistent baseball player. And I think he'll keep that up all season. In terms of early season concerns, I think Jazz has to be up there so far. You worry about Jazz, not necessarily defensively, because I think so far he's been really good defensively at second base, which he always is. But it's the bat that's so far been questionable, to say the least. I think he has a couple of hits so far in the 4 games. It is a contract year, and as everyone knows in baseball, when it's a contract year for a hitter, you just don't know what you're going to get. Are they going to push too hard, especially early in the season? If they struggle early in the season, does it kind of linger in their head all year and they try to push? Like, I think Jazz had a quote last year where he talks about kind of playing at 70% is his sweet spot, where he's not 100% trying to hit everything with all power. He's not trying to hit everything over the fence. Like, he's taking the pitches where they come, either sending it up the middle, going oppo, getting on base, stealing bases, things like that. You wonder if maybe coming into the season he's a little hot, like just kind of really excited, trying to get off to a hot start. Maybe he's pushing a little bit. What you don't want to see is any of his offensive struggles going into the field. As of right now, you don't see that. You can see that he had that one line drive catch. I think it was game 3, where it hit his, like the heel of his glove popped up. He caught it barehanded. Like him kind of looking at his teammates, felt like how cool he was when he did that. So he's clearly still has the high energy. It's not affecting him defensively. So you just kind of hope that he just kind of hits his gear offensively so he can contribute. Because he's again, middle of the lineup bat along with Stanton, where if you kind of create a good runway of good contact hitters, that Jazz is a big part of that. And then coming off of that, also offensively, is McMahon. Chris and I talked a lot about Ryan McMahon. Chris jokes that he called the McMahon trade a long time ago, especially going into the trade deadline last year. McMahon was such a Yankee trade. And I think he still proves it defensively. Like, he's such a consistent fixture at third base. But the bat, we were like, can he be a consistent 250 hitter? Where he's just like, maybe run into one every now and again, 20 to 25 home runs, 250. We'll sign up for that right now. But I think he's similar to Jazz, where he's batting 100 to start the season, not making really good contact, kind of, I don't want to say looking lost at the plate, but his bat so far has not done anything. He has not been impactful when he's hitting. So the thing is, though, Jazz has a track record. He was a 40-40 guy last year. He had dreams of being a 50-50 guy. McMahon doesn't have that track record. If anything, we knew that McMahon was going to be a question mark at best with the bat. But I think the hope was that he would at least be competitive and offer a fight when he's at bat. But so far, that doesn't necessarily seem the case. Again, early, 4 games in, we'll kind of see how they do. I have faith in Jazz. I think Jazz will kind of make his adjustments, even though he already struck out today and McMahon is coming to bat. So we'll kind of see as the Yankees have a 2-0 lead in the top of the second with 2 outs. And actually that inning just ended. So let's see how McMahon struck out as well. So far proving my hopes incorrect so far. But again, early in the season, we'll see. And then on the mound for the Yankees today is Max Fried. So far, inning pitched, 2 strikeouts, 1 walk. So good game with the Mariners. We'll kind of see, keep track of that game. Good series ends with them tomorrow, April 1st, April Fool's Day, at 4:10. So fun series with them. Looking ahead a little bit, like I just said, wrapping up the series with the Mariners playing right now, finishing up the second inning or halfway through the second inning. They'll play the third game tomorrow, and then they'll finally be home for their home opening day in New York against the Marlins, 3-game set, which should be fun. It'll be fun to have them back in the Bronx playing at not 9:30 West Coast time. We'll continue to see how the pitching stacks up and if the bats keep up. I think overall, though, as a Yankee fan, I have to be super excited with what the Yankees are doing. Again, everyone's healthy. All the arms are pitching really well. Blackburn had a bad ending against a really good team. Cal Raleigh getting a walk-off single. That's baseball. It's going to happen. So you can't be too upset about it all. I think you just hope that it just kind of continues to be that good. Judge talked about wanting to sweep opponents more. I think in past years, Boone, after taking the first 2 games or the first 3 games, if it's a 4-game set, that Boone would kind of rest players in that last game, not necessarily, I don't want to say not caring about the sweep, but not really having that urgency to sweep. But I think Judge was talking about how kind of those games can make or break you when it comes to winning a division, right? Finishing tied for a division, losing the tiebreaker, or winning the division and finishing first in the American League. So I think they have some more urgency when it comes to sweeping, which is great, right? I think especially against low-level opponents, you want the Yankees, when they take the first 2, to not take a night off just because it's a weak opponent. You want them to kind of put your foot on the throat, take the sweep, take the win, kind of keep it pushing on to the next series. Lastly, I would like to mention the Mets, even though this is supposed to be a New York baseball show. I know I'm a high Yankee fan, don't really talk about the Mets, but they are 3-1. They took 2 out of 3 against the Pirates, put on a show against Paul Skeens, who's, if not the best pitcher in baseball, probably 2 or 3. But they put on a show against him. They won in extras against Pittsburgh, and then they won yesterday against St. Louis 4-2. And I think that over the past day or 2, there's been kind of more rumblings about the Lindor-Soto relationship and how that could affect anything related to the team. I like to think that Lindor and Soto are professional enough that even if they don't like each other, it won't impact the product on the field. Because they're both going to be in Queens for a long time, and they're both going to be teammates for a long time. So I think one way or another, like each other, don't like each other, shouldn't impact anything on the field. I think it's just tabloid conversation for people to talk about. I don't think it impacts anything on the field, or at least I hope it doesn't, because I think I had a concern about the Mets when it came to their lineup. I was looking at it and I was like, is Polanco going to be good enough? Is Luis Robert going to have a good year? How is Benj going to play being a rookie right fielder? Is Francisco Alvarez going to have a bounce back year after a real up and down season last year? But it looks like their bats so far early in the season, it looks like their lineup can be really good. And I think similar to the Yankees, right? If they stay healthy, they can be a formidable opponent for anyone in the National League. So I think their bats can be that good. I think defensively, I think you hope Bichette finds steadiness at third base so that not every throw is a question mark when he's throwing over to first. because I think you'll be fine between second and short. Like, I don't think you'll have any issues with Simeon and Lindor defensively. I don't think you have a concern. And I think your outfield is fine, Soto aside. Like, I think Benj and Luis Robert will be good defensively in the outfield. And then I think they're pitching. Again, Chris and I, if you look at our last pod, when we talk about the Mets and their lineup or their rotation, I have faith in their rotation. Like, I think health aside, as I feel like I preface every comment I make about the Yankees and Mets is all health aside. But I think their rotation is going to be solid. Between Holmes, between Senga, with McLean, with what they have there, I think they're going to be really good. And I think Chris is more of a, can you do it? Can you do it again, right? Clay Holmes pitching for the first time last year as a starter. Can you repeat all those things that we talked about in our last pod? But I think so far, for both New York teams, a really good start. I think the Mets will continue. They have another 2 games against the Cardinals. And then who do they take on once April kicks in? They finish off against the Cardinals, and then they have a 4-game set against the Giants, which we'll kind of see how the Giants bounce back after how they did against the Yankees. They did not look particularly good against the Yankees, although they did beat the Padres on Monday and are currently beating the Padres 3-0. So could be a fun one once the Mets finish up with the Cardinals, bouncing back with the Padres, or going to San Francisco to take on the Giants. It will be a fun matchup for the Mets. So overall, great start for the New York teams. Good, everything looking good with the pitching staff. Both lineups look good. So I think it'll just be, can they keep it up? Can the lineups keep producing runs? Can the pitching staff stay healthy and become consistent? I think that's all be fun things to kind of keep tabs on as the season progresses. So we'll see.